Well, I wish I could have gotten this out 4 or 5 days ago, and I probably should have. I probably should have made the time, but too much hunting this year, and that's a good thing. Trying to organize hunts and friends coming in and out, and that's a really good thing. It's what it's all about, is hunting family, friends this time of year, and this November is no exception, especially with our new land in Minnesota and still hunt back in Wisconsin. Really wanted to talk about warm weather rut hunting, and I've been a part of HuntCast and creating that weather algorithm that's infused into HuntCast and really predicting the best days to hunt. And a lot of times there's a lot of confusion where you look at a good day and it's going to be a warm day and it'll say a good day to hunt. And a lot of times those best days are not great hunting in the afternoon. They're great hunting in the morning. And warm weather rut hunting, every day has potential. I was out yesterday, buddy Mike was here, filming in the stand with me, had a perfect opportunity. Mike told me at 10:22 that I blew. And maybe we'll show that to you someday. But it was an opportunity on a day where it was supposed to be 71 degrees. It was quite warm in the morning. And the reason I was hunting there in the morning and I didn't hunt at night is because of that morning opportunity. Water. Obviously when it's hot, when the bucks are moving, they're going to hit water. But did you know when it's 28 degrees, 17 degrees, bucks still work up a thirst? I can remember when I was a boy playing hockey on the lakes around Waterford, Michigan. And we would push it because there's times where there's open water out in the middle of the lake and there's no snow. We'd hit the hockey puck and the puck would just keep sliding across the ice and all of a sudden, bloop, it was gone. And it was too thin to go out there, it was too deep. So we would lose it. But I can remember it's 10 degrees out. My friend's mom coming out is at Steve Rogenbaum's house. And Mrs. Rogenbaum came out and she let us know that, you guys need to put your jackets on. And we're out there playing and it's 10 degrees and we're sweating in t-shirts. We worked up a thirst. We worked up a sweat. And we were playing hockey and it was 10 degrees. Deer. Can you imagine those bucks? When it's good cruising conditions during the day, they are moving. Doesn't matter if it's 17 degrees, but certainly when it's a rut and 60 degrees, hunting those water holes can be incredible. With all the work we've done here in Minnesota this year, I've kind of neglected some things in Wisconsin. Our stands were set, all good. Food plot's really good. Trail camera's going good. One of the things I neglected was to make sure the water holes were full. There's a couple water holes we cannot get to because of a washout, but there's 2 I should have had water in. Even to the point where I'm considering putting water in the next couple days in the anticipation of hunting it next week sometime for the cold front and when we're going to be out there. But the amount of trail cam footage that we had, and let's say it's, I believe, the 6th of November right now. So let's say going back to the 25th of October, the 20th, the 15th of October, even towards the end of October, before the water ran out. They all have a little glistening of water in there. But my goodness, the amount of bucks we had hitting that water during that time, both during cold times and hot days, was incredible. There's just not a lot of standing water. We've had a little bit of a drought period through September and October, into September, October. And so there's a lot of dry conditions. And man, if you are having a difficult rut during warm weather, if you can focus on water, if you can provide water next year in anticipation it will be dry at some point, it can be an incredible opportunity. We typically have a mock scrape nearby, stand location of course. Don't ever, just because you have more water on the property doesn't necessarily hold more deer or attract more deer, but it defines movement. So if you don't have a bow stand by a water hole, it's a sin in my book, where you can't take advantage of movement. So think about where you're putting a water hole. Make sure you have a couple trees nearby, maybe a blind location. My buddy Mike and I are actually hunting a water hole here in Minnesota tomorrow. I'm going to sit with him, and it's not dried up. And now when it was frozen a couple weeks ago, they weren't hitting it much either. But right now when it's not frozen, it's some of the only water in the area. I'm looking forward to a rut gun hunt here in Minnesota. So focus on water during the rut. That may seem obvious, but it's an opportunity if you haven't tapped into that before. And if you're on public land, boy, go find some water. It's worth it. I talk about private land, deer don't move that far. They aren't attracted that far to areas. There used to be back in the day, people would put 100 scrapes on their property thinking that more deer would be on, or more bucks would be on their property because you have more scrapes. That's just kind of hogwash. But when it comes to water, deer can be attracted a long ways in public land, because on large wilderness wooded settings, deer will travel a lot further than if they're compacted on small private land settings. They don't move as far. Think about water even on public land looking for it. Number two, the shady side, the valley. A lot of people think about deer hunting on the southern exposure where there's a lot of browse, there's more growth, there's more food, and there's more cover. But boy, we see a lot. We have north-facing slopes on a property that we hunt, the big deep valleys and draws, the shady side of a thick woodlot, of a conifer stand, getting down there where it's shady. Always an opportunity to find deer that recognize that it's cooler, 5-10 degrees in this location in the area than it is over here. And one thing we notice a lot, so whether it's the shady side in the morning, the shady side in the afternoon, where deer are moving from the sun-exposed areas, maybe where they've been bedding and napping all day and getting into that shaded side. But valleys, it's pretty interesting. When we're walking in the valleys and we're going up 300 to 400 feet in elevation, that valley can be pretty cool. Now, what's interesting about that, it'll stay pretty cool in through the morning hour, 2 hours. But what's interesting is we'll be sitting up in the hills. When you go in, it's cool. When you come back down after dark, it's cooler down there. But when you come out at noon, 11 o'clock, and you come down into those sun-exposed valleys, now they're sun-exposed. Now the sun's up after a couple hours. They're very hot. Big temperature change between up top in the woods. It's almost like that cool air is still hanging around there, but when it's open, sunny, exposed, grassy, those same valleys that held a lot of deer at daybreak because it was cooler, the cool held in that valley. We had that buck come up to us the other day. It was 10:22. And it was right about that time where we felt pretty good up there, but the valleys were getting hot. And I think there's not much of a difference in temperature change. So instead of holding down in the cool valleys, they're getting sun baked. It's out in the open, and those deer will start to move up into the hills. So we see a lot of deer, even in normal conditions, where they're moving up into those hills a little bit later, and potentially down in those valleys where it was cool and where they're hanging out all night during the morning hours. But I can't stress enough. People ask, what do I do? It's a warm week. You know, we're looking at warm temperatures here. It's Friday right now. The warm temperatures are going to persist in through, I think, Wednesday morning. I can't wait to hunt. I think it's Tuesday night, Wednesday morning here in southeast Minnesota, southwest Wisconsin. That transfers over a day into lower Michigan. Could be even a couple days into Pennsylvania and New York, where you're not seeing those cool temperatures till the end of next week. My really close buddy, Tim Glover, he's hunting from Marquette, Michigan, down into the Gaylord, Michigan area. And he told me he's going home during this hot weather and he's coming back next week when it's cool, and what a wise decision. We talk all the time about these strategies. And if you're consistently hunting the weather, you're consistently putting the odds in your favor, no different than stacking the decks. When it's hot, hit mornings. There's a lot of times where those morning lows are 43, 45 in this area right here. I don't know, maybe that transfers to 85 in Louisiana, 85 in Arkansas, Alabama, and then it's getting up to 100 plus during that day. Well, deer are going to move during daylight. It's going to be in the morning hours. Not to say they don't all of a sudden go out on a jaunt and cruise. It's a rut. Things are unpredictable. But if you have days to choose and you're trying to be smart about your hunting and you're trying to pick when to use your best stands versus your worst stands, then really make sure you focus on those morning lows. That'd be 45 degrees to 85, depending on if you're, up in the UP in Michigan, Wisconsin. 45 degrees this time of year is pretty warm in the morning. It might actually be getting up to 65, 70 during the day in those locations. And that 20 degrees difference is really noticeable to deer, let alone us. I mean, it's comfortable for us to go in and out of a stand at 45 degrees in the morning, as opposed to coming out of that stand midday at 72. You're going to get pretty heated up. So depending on where you're at, that could be 60 degree, 100 degree highs from, for warm weather. And that would include northern Wisconsin, Minnesota, Michigan. And then, boy, it could be a hot day down in Florida at 100 degrees, Louisiana. It's funny, people always say, I wanted to put these in there because people say, how come you never mentioned Missouri, or how come you never mentioned Arkansas? Well, I just did. So a lot of times these strategies all apply. It doesn't really matter. It's all relative. Never think that there's a certain food plot acreage, even a certain food plot type, even a certain temperature that you should be hunting. It's all relative to your area, and you try to match these strategies to your conditions. And again, that could be highs from 60 to 100 degrees plus. That's warm weather, could be 45 to 80 degrees, 85 degrees during those morning hours. But hunting, whether you have water, you hunt the shady side or not, mornings are key. I've had some great opportunities over the last week in Wisconsin in the morning. I can admit I've blown about 3.5 sits or opportunities, and I think we'll talk about those mistakes someday, but I can assure you, Mike, my buddy that's back here right now, he can assure you that I make some severe mistakes sometimes. We all make mistakes. It's how we learn, and I feel like I've learned from each one of the mistakes, but boy, I wish I had him back. And I say 3.5 because one buck, I'm not sure if he would have come closer or not. He was coming my way. I'm not sure if I ended up spooking him in the end or if there's a doe nearby. I think a doe was nearby, so I'm not really sure on the other one, but the other 3 I actually blew. But I was hunting those mornings because although people were saying these are warm weather rut days, they were outstanding mornings to be in the woods because they're 20 to 25 degrees cooler than the afternoons. Again, you can have bucks moving all day in those heated, in the heat, but if you're going to be a bedding person and try to find consistent success with mature bucks moving during daylight, it's going to be in the morning during those time of year. And think about this, if it's cool at night, and I mean cool meaning 45 degrees, 60 degrees if you're, can you imagine Louisiana, 60 degrees and it's getting up to 90, then 60 degrees at night is going to be cool. Those bucks are rutting. The does are being bred. It's not like they're not bred because of the weather. So they're still being bred, but they're extremely active during the night. And it's always a boost, a roller coaster of activity. If they're rutting all night long, then they're going to be tired during the day. If they're laying around all day because it's hot and they don't want to move great distances, then guess when they're going to rut? It's going to blow up at night when that temperature drops. There's still the cool of the day in the morning. In fact, daybreak is often the coolest time. One of the things I want to mention in all of this, obviously you're hunting mornings, you're hunting shady water, or shady side, you're hunting water. Look for changes in wind. If you have times where the winds are, we had last Sunday, the winds literally got up to 60-mile-an-hour gusts. They blew people out of the tree stand into ground blinds. My buddy Rich went down into a ground blind. He was just getting pelted with the wind. Not to say deer don't move and bucks during that wind sometimes, especially when it's cooler conditions. But when you have huge winds up to 60 miles an hour and during Saturday to Sunday, and you have a relatively warm day on Monday, but the winds are dead, guess what? Tons of great deer activity. I actually saw a booner this week. That's one of the ones, there was a half one. I'm not sure if I messed up on or not. I actually saw 3 shooter bucks on that Monday, and it was because everything had cleared out the weather. It's going to be a warmer day, great sit. Focus on water, shade, and hunting in the morning. Look for changes in the wind. If it's extremely windy like it is today, even if the temperatures were the same in through Sunday, if it's windy all day Saturday, same temperatures, Sunday morning is going to be hot because the wind changes. Deer like to hear. They like to be able to see better. They like to be able to smell consistently and be able to plan on those winds. And it's no different. Sometimes it's calm, and I'm not really a big fan of calm winds either. I like to have a little bit of wind. We don't need 60-mile-an-hour gusts, but you can tame a warm weather rut. The deer are still moving. Really focus on those morning lows, those change in morning lows, those change in temperatures, change in weather, if it's big rains and winds clearing out, hard hail, whatever it might be, even if it's the same temperature the next day, but everything's subsided. That's what we focus on with HuntCast. We focus on those changes. We pick those out of the weather and predict them to be great days for you. Don't miss these morning rut hunts. Follow these tips. And I know this warm weather is going to subside. We're getting a lot cooler temperatures next week. I think this is our summer that's, the end of our summer, the end of our hot days, I hope. But you know what? Whether it's warm weathers next year, the year after, even warm weather towards the end of the rut here in a week or two, then I hope you can capitalize on it. And you never need to stay home or worry about not having good conditions to hunt if you follow these warm weather rut hunting tips this fall and beyond. Well, if you made it to the end of this video, you're obviously interested in Whitetail Habitat Solutions, what I have to teach, and you will love my new web class series. The first one is how to design your whitetail property. It's out now. The link is in the description. I invite you to check it out. It's on my website. Can't wait to hear about it.